Hey, hey, hey! Morning! How are we all? I am just hopping on really quickly this morning here, to talk about how long does it take to learn to write? And I'm asking this question and I'm posing it in this particular way because it raises some really interesting questions. And actually it's something that somebody asked in one of my writing classes yesterday. And the kinds of issues and considerations it raises is, firstly, so how long does it take to learn to write? So it is writing, is writing an innate skill? So is it something that we're born with, or is it something that we learn to do? Well, the question is suggesting that we learn to write, and I believe that we do. It also makes me think about when we are learning to write, what is it we're learning? Are we learning facts? Are we learning, so if we're reading facts in books, in craft books, are those facts, or are we learning skills, or are we learning both? What do you think? It's really interesting to think about. And also, whilst we're on the subject of skills, do we learn a skill once and then we've got it and we don't have to, learn it again? It raises that sort of question as well. And so when somebody asks me, how long does it take to learn to write? Or how long will it take me to learn to write a novel? It also, it makes the learning sound like it's very much an outcome and it's a destination, whereas in fact learning is much more of an ongoing process. If you think about it, so an ongoing process which involves continual and ongoing practice and repetition of that particular skill. It involves lots of other things as well, which I'll talk about in a bit. So I just wanted to start off just telling you about a really interesting study that was carried out, which showed that experts in a particular field, in fact, there's a lot of research that shows this with experts such as sports people, with chess players, with musicians, and also if you think about it, it also is the case with artists as well. If you think about somebody who paints beautiful pictures, they don't kind of learn how to dab their brush in the paint once and that's it, then they are thereafter a master painter. So in this study then, what they found was that experts practiced much more than their counterparts who were less able. And I find this so interesting, and there is a lot of research. It is a really, really reliable finding that being an expert, whatever that means, in something is very much down to how much we practice. And I love this. I absolutely love it. Not just because it's true. It is true because evidence shows repeatedly that it's true, but also because it gives us so much power. It is such an empowering thing to know that if we practice something, we can get better at it. And, it's not new, is it? Because, this is why teachers get us practicing things, and at school, kind of homework, we're practicing things, we are repeating. There's a lot of repetition involved with learning. And as dull as that can be, if you think about, I can't play a piano, but I often wish that I really could. How often do you have to practice, playing scales? I remember friends at school who had to go and do their, however long it was each day, practicing their scales, etc. So I love this finding that, you know, being an expert is very much correlated with the amount of practice that that person puts in. Okay, and so there are a couple of other things. So in addition to practice, so if we want to become, you know, kind of proficient in something, you know, forget the whole expert thing, you know, I want to be an expert writer. If we just want to be, you know, proficient, you know, just kind of good enough, basically, or just to make a start, you know, with writing, then practice. Okay, so we need practice. We also need a couple of other things, and I'm going to mention what those are. So we also need quite a few things, skills, which kind of fall under the banner of mindset, basically. And I'll just kind of run through, I mean, this is a topic for another day, but I'll just run through briefly what some of those are. So some of the key mindset skills that we need as writers, well, to learn anything, basically, to get better at anything, is patience, very importantly. And I'm going to just say a little bit more about that in a sec. We also need belief. We need to have beliefs which are helpful. And the kind of beliefs we need to have as writers are that it's possible, that what we're doing is possible, that it's possible for us to learn how to write a novel or a screenplay or a poem or whatever it is. And it's possible, we have to believe it's possible for us to get better, you know, for us to keep improving, you know, what we're doing. And that the kind of things, the success criteria that we set for ourselves, you know, for people to read our work, you know, or if we're looking for, you know, to publish it, you know, to have it published or whatever, if that's what our success criteria are, we really need to believe that that is possible. So without that belief, then it's very, very difficult to keep going. And there's a third thing, there's a lot more actually in mindset stuff. There's a third thing which is really important, and this is our having a sense of resilience. And this is the ability to keep going, to withstand knocks and setbacks and, you know, criticism, you know, etc. So practice and mindset. And there's a third thing then that we need when we're learning, and which as writers we need as well. And this is feedback. Okay, we need feedback on our work from somebody who knows what they're talking about, from somebody we trust, and from somebody who knows how to give that feedback in ways which are constructive for us. This is very, very important. And so, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say a little bit about, you know, this process of learning. So, in other words, this idea that we don't just kind of learn once all the things that are involved with writing. We learn things in stages. And so we start off then by learning the basics to get us started. Just like we do with everything else. If we're learning to play tennis, or, you know, we're learning to play the trumpet, or, you know, we're learning to do anything else, you know, to kind of do wall climbing or something like that. You start off by learning the basics, and then you build on those. So you learn the basics, you know, you practice them. You get feedback on them about, you know, what you're doing well, you know, what you're doing right, whatever that means, and ways to improve on what you're doing. Okay, and then you learn a bit more, and then you practice that. Sorry, excuse me. And then you get more feedback on, you know, your development and your progress and your growth. And then you learn in greater depth, you know, more complex, you know, more sophisticated aspects to whatever it is that you're doing. And I love this. I love this idea because for the same reasons, I think it's really, really empowering then that we can learn things in stages, that learning to write, and becoming a good writer, whatever that means, then, is something which is within our within our grasp. I'm going to swig some water, excuse me. Within our grasp. It's something we can do, and it's something that we all have to practice. And so it means that, in some ways we can let ourselves off the hook, with expecting ourselves to be, perfect and to be amazing writers to start with. Nobody is an amazing writer to start with. And the things that we draft, are very, very, very far from amazing. And so much of, as I'm sure you've heard and you'll be reading, so much of writing, is about drafting things and then, revising what you're writing, etc. And so what I wanted to say also then is that, we don't just read, one book. We don't just read, one article or one book, or just do one course, one short course on writing, and then we know all the things that we need. It just doesn't work like that, at all. And the reason again why I say this is because it is just so important, to be patient, with ourselves, and and with our learning and with our progress. And the other thing about learning, with learning, at the beginning I started off saying, what is it we're learning when we're learning to write? Are we learning facts or are we learning skills? Well, we are learning both. But actually, with both, what happens then, is that learning isn't linear. We'll feel like we're making progress, and then sometimes actually we're not. Sometimes we plateau, for a while. It can feel really, really frustrating. I'm just not improving here. I'm just not improving here. But that is all completely normal. It's exactly what happens, with learning. And we'll know this from other areas. With learning, I always kind of ask questions about, well, how has this worked in other areas? Because it's really important. And as writers, we're so hard on ourselves, in terms of us learning these skills and and wanting ourselves to improve, that in all other things that we're learning, we can be often much more patient, with ourselves than we are, than with writing. And so why am I talking about this then? Well, it's not just because somebody was raising this question yesterday in one of my writing classes. They were, but I'm mentioning it, and I'm bringing it to you because of the issues and the considerations that it raises, and for a couple of really important reasons. And so this is that it's really easy to become impatient, with the process, to become impatient with ourselves, and to get kind of cross and irritable and angry, with ourselves because, we're not doing it better, or we can't do this yet, or we haven't got that bit yet, and comparing ourselves unfavourably, to others. It's also really easy to get impatient, with our stories, with the projects that we're writing, and also with the people who are reading our work, and also the people who maybe give us feedback, the people who are gatekeepers, the people who are in control of us, or who influence, have a control or a say over whether or not we get the outcomes that we want. And so this then leads me to the absolute key thing, is that if we feel these things, oh, I should have learnt all this, by now, etc. If we don't bring patience to ourselves and to the process of writing and learning to write and improving and improving and improving, etc., it can be really easy to give up. We can find that we're kind of saying to, oh, it's all too hard, I can't do it, I'll never do it, what's the point, I've tried all this and I'm just not getting any better, all this stuff, it's too hard, and then to give up. And it can affect our motivation. And so these are all things then which it's really, really important to, keep an eye out for. And from experience, from teaching creative writing since 2012, so that's for 10 years now, I have seen over and over and over again how that is something which is not helpful. And so what is helpful, is to bring these attitudes then of patience and believing that we can do this thing, that it's possible, etc. And this attitude of resilience, to what we're doing, and to carry on basically with the practice, which is where I started, the role of practice. That study that showed that experts practice much more than people who aren't experts. Okay, so whatever happens, just to keep doing the practice, keep doing the practice, keep doing the practice. And so this means to keep writing, just to keep writing. Okay. Now, obviously, the feedback aspect of it, can be helpful as well, and that can come in various different forms. But that's kind of a talk really for another day. But the key thing is to keep practicing and to maintain the belief, the absolutely unwavering belief that what you want to do, what you are trying to do, is possible, and that you're going to do it. Okay. But also the acknowledgement that learning to write is an ongoing process that really never stops. And so if you listen to author talks, I can't think of any author, any author that I know who's successful and who's been writing for a long time, who wouldn't acknowledge, how they're writing and their work has improved, over the years, etc. And also acknowledge that they are still learning. Okay, so learning to write, it's not a destination. Okay, it's not an outcome, it is an ongoing process. So I hope that's useful, and I am going to shut up now and have another swig of my water. So bye for now. Bye.